Hi, and welcome back to Insights of NetSupport Corporate Edition. I am your host, Cauchi, and today I am really excited to be welcoming Saskia onto the show. So welcome. It's so lovely to see you.
Oh, thanks, Kat, and it's so nice to be here. Thanks for having me on your show.
Of course. How are you? How's your week been?
Oh, it's been really good. Thank you for asking. How's yours been?
Yeah, good. I'm glad it's Friday, though, to be honest.
Getting really cold now, so I'm a little bit cold, but apart from that, I'm good.
Good, perfect. So would you mind just starting by introducing yourself to our listeners, please? A little bit about you and what you do.
Yeah, I'm Saskhia Menendez, and I'm a Quality and Diversity Ambassador, a researcher, a social change activist, a mentor, and also an artist in the music industry. And I'm here to kind of help diversify the music industry landscape, educate, inspire, and empower others to come along and feel part of and welcome in an industry that's ever evolving and is becoming more and more diverse and representative of the communities in which we live.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that it's obviously moving in the right direction, actually becoming more diverse then. And it's great that there are obviously women like you that are leading on that, which is awesome.
Thank
And
you.
so one thing I wanted to ask before we get into kind of all of the stuff around inclusion in the music industry is just where does your passion for music come from?
That's a really good question. Well, I was born to two deaf parents,
Mhm.
and I was from a very disadvantaged family, growing up
Mm.
in Oxford, to a multiracial family, and
Mhm.
I found it really difficult to communicate with my parents, actually.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a way of me being able to release my feelings, my
Mm.
emotions, and to actually feel that I was good at something because I wasn't very
Mhm.
educational at school. I didn't
Mm.
really have people to teach me how to read or to write or to speak.
Mm.
So I had various challenges in that aspect. So I was always drawn to music and sports, funnily enough. So I was really
Mm.
good at those kind of areas and being a creative. So I always stuck to that. And I was singing at school, at my first school, and they noticed I had a really good singing voice. So my music
Mm.
teacher always said to me, "Come on, Saskia, we're having you singing." Every morning they used to do me an hour singing practice in the
Oh,
mornings.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Thanks, and I remember we used to sit in assemblies, and music was a
Mm.
big part of our assemblies at school. So every
Mm.
morning we'd sing songs, and I don't know, I just felt like music was always like a getaway, a release, an escape, but also something that
Mm.
I connected to. And then they sent me for some voice trials, which I had no idea about, and it was to a private, like a cathedral school, and I just sung.
Mm.
I was like, "Right, you just need to sing." So I
Yeah.
sung, and I actually managed to win a scholarship to go to one of these really good choirs
Oh, that's amazing.
in Oxford. So
Mm.
I was there for 4 years, and that kind of
Mm.
solidified my passion for music, and
Mm.
where my dream began because I started doing tours, singing on
Oh.
TV, met
Mhm.
Princess Diana and the Queen and other people. That was really, really nice, but it was a
Wow.
massive change from going to a very deprived background to a school.
Mm.
People were quite well-to-do, and it was a different
Yeah.
environment, but it was
Mm.
kind of where my music passion came from, and I've
Yeah.
always followed it through, funny enough. So from GCSE
Mm.
all the way up to masters, and now I'm even
Mm.
looking at starting my PhD, so it's all good.
Wow. It's really, really stuck with you. That's awesome. I'm glad your school was so supportive as well and helped you get those opportunities because I think sometimes the creative subjects can get really neglected when actually they are just as important as, more academic ones.
That's what
So,
I've started to notice actually, is there's a lot
yeah.
of facts, and especially on the creative sector at the moment, especially
Mm.
schools, and that's such a shame because
It is.
people that kind of struggle educationally, and that is
Mm.
an outlet, and it is an educational kind of tool, and people can make money
Yeah.
from it. Because I think I was always told as well, being growing up, that you can't
Mm.
pay the bills doing music. You need to
Mm.
do something else. You need to do law. You need to do something, a good job like that. And I think a lot of people are quite aware of how hard it is and how competitive.
Mm.
And it's also about timing and keep going and having that passion.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just changing that perception a bit, isn't it? And providing role models for people as well to see it is possible. But like you say, obviously it's something you've got to work hard at. But you could say
Yeah,
that for anything.
yeah, it's something you've really got to work hard for, and at
Mm,
times it is difficult, and there are challenges along the way, but it's about being
of
passionate.
course.
It's about not giving up and following your
Mm.
dreams.
Yeah. So this wasn't actually on our questions before, but I just thought of it from you saying about moving to like cathedral school. What was that transition like for you? Because obviously you said you were from a very deprived background, and then
Yeah,
you've gone into this, quite kind of posh sort of
yeah.
school.
It was
How was
hard
that for
because
you?
it was hard for me because when I
Mm,
was multiracial, and I think there weren't many multiracial people at the school at the time,
mhm.
and I didn't speak the same. Kind of
Yeah.
the way I spoke wasn't kind of the same, but I had a
Mm,
really, really good time, and I
that's good.
flourished, and I learned
Yeah.
so much. It wasn't easy. It was like going to
Mm,
school that was really kind of not strict at all to a very strict,
mm,
rigid kind of regime that was
yeah.
very useful for now. 'Cause it kind of makes
Mm,
me wanna get up, makes me wanna do things, and it's kind of
yeah.
preparing me, I think, for the future. So I'm really pleased.
Mm. Oh, that's great. Oh, I
Thank you.
love that. Yeah, no, thank you. I'm always curious about that, especially because I grew up on a council estate, so I have some kind of experience of the
Yeah,
that kind of that transition,
yeah,
yeah, from kind of that background. So yeah, it must have been like a different world, but it's amazing you're able to learn so much from it. I think that's
and I met
great.
so many nice people and so many good friends
Yeah.
I still kept in touch with. So
Oh,
it's nice,
that's lovely.
yeah, how everyone's kind of evolved and their
Yeah.
lifestyles and, sometimes it is
Mm,
harder, being from
mm.
2 deaf parents and not having that parental
Yeah. It must
time.
have been difficult, like you say, communicating and
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
and obviously I went into children's home and foster care for a little while as well,
Mm,
being away from them and then living with my grandparents. So there was a lot of change
mm,
as a child,
mm.
quite unsettling, but I always had music as kind of my
Yeah.
lifeline, and I think that's what stayed with me.
I think that's beautiful that music was able to transcend all of that for you and be that
Thank
safe
you.
space for you through all that
That's
time.
it. Definitely.
Yeah.
I felt respected, and I felt like I'm doing something good, and I'm trying to be
Mm.
positive and change the music industry landscape even now for a
Yeah,
more
no, that's amazing.
caring place.
Yeah, giving back, that's so cool.
Thank
So obviously you've mentioned that you are, a multiracial woman and you're also a trans woman as well. What's that like for you within the music landscape?
It's had a lot of challenges along the way, actually.
Mm,
A lot of the time, I feel that I'm the only person in the room. I'm the only
yeah,
person representing trans men and trans women. Um,
yeah.
there is a new trend at the moment with the non-binary stuff that's going
Mhm.
on. There is a lot more representation for non-binary people than there are trans men and trans women, unfortunately,
Mm,
is what I'm finding at the moment. There's
yeah.
also a lot of confusion around what it is to be trans or transsexual,
Mm,
uh, and non-binary and where they all fit. Because I tried
mm.
12 years ago, and some of these things didn't even exist then. Um,
Yeah, it has changed a lot in a
a
short
lot,
space of time, hasn't it?
yes, and it seems to have kind of eroded away at some of the rights that we enjoyed before,
Mm,
trans men and trans women, and there's
mm,
a lot more politicization, and I find there's been a lot more problems lately with even
mm.
accessing toilets when for me that's never been a
Yeah.
problem in the past or having
No.
issues, growing up. I
Yeah.
think a lot of them have been caused or kind
Mm,
of blown out of proportion for
mhm.
media representation, and there's been
Mm,
misrepresentation as well. So
absolutely.
yeah, for me, it's trying to get that right. It's trying to say, look,
Mm,
do exist, we are here, but we
yeah.
need to inspire younger generations, especially
Mm,
the future talent pipeline, on the
definitely.
right way and what it is, because I
Mm,
think sometimes people are confused, and it's
mm,
to see people confused when I think before there was more of an idea of what a trans man or a trans woman was. Now I
yeah.
don't. I think there's a lot more confusion around that.
Do you think in some ways we've kind of gone backwards on that as well?
I do actually,
Yeah.
and that's something I find that's affected me personally is
Mm,
I've had to stand up and I've had to speak up, and a lot of the
yeah.
time previously it was a taboo subject. It was never spoken about. Even if we
Mm,
were trans, we didn't really have to talk about it because it was just trying to fit
mm,
in, be the norm,
yeah.
but now it's become a trend where it's called
Mm,
this kind of person when actually it's really difficult. It's not
yeah.
political, it's not
No.
easy, there's many challenges,
But so
discrimination.
it's not about a fashionable thing or being trendy. It's about who you are and your identity. And it's really important that it's not seen as like a fad or something when
That's what
it's
I
about
think.
human beings and what they want to be.
Right. A big life
Yeah.
decision.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, and I've had to go through a diagnosis. I've had to take
Hmm.
I've had to take surgeries. You
Yeah.
know, and sometimes those things have been absolutely scary and
Mm.
to deal with and go through.
Yeah, well, any kind of operation or anything is scary anyway, isn't it? You know, no matter why you're having it, it's
Yeah,
still a risk, isn't it?
right, and when you're actually putting your life on the line to be
Mm.
who you feel that you need to be to live, to
Yeah,
survive, and also I'm a parent of 2 children,
of
so
course. You've got them to think about as well.
that's it, and it's also about kind of showing them that even if I am this person, I can still get
Mm.
out there, I can still do things, because it's even had an impact on my children and how
Mm.
they've been treated at times.
Yeah.
So it has been challenges. It's not been easy.
Mm. Of course. And what are some of the main barriers that you're seeing for trans people in the music and entertainment industry?
I think there's a lack of representation and
Mm.
visibility. The education
Mm.
is just not there at
Yeah.
all at the moment, and I think that's something that I'm also trying to deal with. It's
Mm.
research gap. There's just no research at all. So if we
Mm.
start measuring progress, if we want to start seeing a change, we need to know where the starting points are. So we need to know where we're at
Yeah.
now. And I think we did a survey this year at the musician census, and
Mm.
out of the 6,000 people, 2% of those people identified as trans, which actually
Mm.
is treble the amount of the actual general population.
Oh,
And then
wow.
when I look at the actual industry itself, I'm thinking, well,
Yeah.
when I'm looking around, I'm not seeing these trans people, but
Mm.
the numbers are saying, hold on a minute, we have 2% here. So where are
Yeah.
they? How do we map that? And I
Mm. How
also
do you make it visible as well, I guess?
right, right.
Yeah.
See, there's a better kind of representation in the performing side, but then
Mm.
the business side, the educational side,
Yeah, of course.
non-existent, and I kind of fit into both.
Mm.
So
Mm.
being aware of that as well and understanding how we can improve this and why that is, and
Yeah.
how we can support people in the future better than we are.
Mm. Yeah. So obviously a big part of being able to make this a more inclusive space is, like you say, that understanding and that education. What else can the industry do to be more supportive and inclusive?
Like you said before, I think we need more role models. I think
Mm.
we actually need to see people in positions that then you can aspire to be like, because if you don't see yourself, you don't feel welcome. And
Mm.
comparing it to other creative sectors, for example, film and fashion, I think there is more representation, there is more
Yeah.
visibility, but the music industry is a little bit more behind, which is a bit of a shame.
Mm.
Changes are happening, but I just
Yeah.
feel that sometimes they're happening, but they're going in the wrong direction, or they're not quite
Mm.
representing the right people in the right places, unfortunately.
Yeah. So they could
Um,
learn a lot from some of the other, like, aspects of the entertainment industries by the sounds of it as
100%.
well then.
And I
Mm.
think that's another thing I've been working towards is getting the creative sector as a whole, the creative economy
Mm.
to work more consistently together, because
Yeah.
one industry is doing one thing and another industry is doing something else, when actually there's some really great initiatives in each one of those industries
Mm.
that can be rolled across every one of them because we work so closely together.
Yeah. Yes, there's no point in kind of being in silos when you can, like, connect on those aspects.
Exactly, and it's such a major part of our economy as well. The creative sector brings in billions of pounds. It supports so many jobs, and I think it'd be so great to see a diverse community of a diverse workforce that represents the
Mm.
communities in which we live. I think that's it
Mm.
too.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Thank
So
you.
for employers where they have got employees that are transitioning, what kind of support should they be giving them to really help them through that process? Because as you said, it is a really difficult thing to go through and it's a big decision.
Yeah.
So that support is obviously really matters for them.
It does, and it's also about understanding the transition, and I think
Mm.
for the employer to understand what it takes, the kind of process, the length of time, and giving the kind of person time off to kind of
Mm.
they need time for appointments,
Yes.
operations, being able to store hormones, for example. Sometimes you might need a fridge where you might be able to
Mm.
store hormones. just being aware of pronouns and
Mm.
names.
Yeah.
Toilets is another issue.
Mhm.
If someone is
Of course,
transitioning,
yeah.
is there a place that they could use maybe a disabled toilet or a gender
Mhm.
neutral toilet? And just ensuring that you just check in and
Yeah.
support the person along the way. I think it's really important. Um,
Mm.
so just trying to be more open-minded and understanding when it comes to the recruitment process of
Mm.
some of the barriers and the issues that the trans community face just to get to the place where they are right now. Because another
Mhm.
thing is intersectionality, and
Yeah.
that affects people because we don't always start on the same starting line, unfortunately.
Mm.
Some people have to work 10 times harder than others just to
Mm.
get to the interview process. So just having that understanding, and maybe just trying to understand about some of the issues and barriers I think that certain communities face, not just one specific community, but a lot of these underrepresented communities. There's so much we can learn from each other about how
Mhm.
to support each other, what those issues and barriers are, and then just trying to offer them support in place when they want to come and work with you. So I think again, it's
Yeah.
just empowering others and seeing and believing in others as well. Because I think some
Mm.
people are a little bit scared or a bit nervous, and they don't have to be. I don't think it's something that you need to be afraid of.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Talking is such a big part of it, isn't it? And really understanding what the person wants and not making assumptions. I mean, I guess that's true
It
for
doesn't
anything, isn't it?
make assumptions and don't be afraid to ask, because I
Mm.
do speak to a lot of people, and I can see that there is at the moment there's this fear to ask a question. Don't be afraid
Mm.
to ask. Always feel free to reach out and ask.
Yeah.
And I think it's just being aware of how you ask the question, you know,
Mm.
and just try and not make it personal, for example, about certain
Yeah.
tools or operations you might not have, because that might
Mm.
be for people to discuss.
Yeah, I think sometimes people are so afraid of saying or doing the wrong thing, but actually, if they were brave enough to ask the questions in the first place, it would be less likely that would happen because they'll
Yeah,
know.
assumption as well, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely. So you mentioned before that how important representation is as part of inclusion for
Yeah.
trans people within the music industry. How can this be made visible? And you also talked about authentic and proportional.
I think that's a great question too, and I think all you have to look at the numbers, the stats. So
Mhm.
we've had the census at the moment, so that's given us some data on the trans stats, what they are at the moment in the UK, which is quite
Yeah.
useful actually. So that can be used as a benchmark to say, okay,
Mm.
this is the amount of the population that we have. So we need to kind of represent that in a percentage in the
Mm.
workforce. It was one of the suggestions that I was coming up with. It's
Yeah.
also about having artists being recognised and being
Mm.
kind of role modelled so that other artists can see that, yes, we are welcome. Yes, that we have got a place here and we're safe and we're
Yeah.
respected. I think it's also about having people in the higher kind of in C-suites, for example, in board of directors
Mm.
that can kind of drive these changes from lived
Yeah.
experience, sharing those
Mhm.
experiences. But also, I think it's about having more education and making
Mm.
sure that we do educate people better on what these issues and barriers are. And I have my own podcast, which again, I do share a lot of these issues and goals with other
That's
communities
great.
and different countries as well, because they're
Mm. Yeah. Where can people listen to your podcast? Because that's a really good shout for
Thank
people.
you. It's on Spotify and it's called Music Industry Insights Worldwide. If you just Google that in Music Industry Insights Worldwide, I have
Beautiful.
23 episodes on there so far. I've just
Nice.
ordered another 10, so they'll be coming
Mhm.
out next Monday on a weekly basis.
Brilliant. Oh, perfect. Yeah, no, that'd be a really great place for people to start kind of
Thank
listening into that to get some ideas.
thank you.
Um,
Yeah,
and
that's from
obviously, you mentioned you help with the education with businesses. Could you talk a little bit more about how you do that in case people are interested?
course. Yeah, so I do a lot of public speaking actually, and I go around internationally, and also here in the UK, and I teach people some of the issues and the barriers, but also
Mm.
what it is to be trans, and share some
Yeah.
of the lived experiences, not
Mm.
just from myself, but from other people that I've interviewed on my show, and also from other perspectives of the industry. So I do that in different ways, from questioning people
Mm.
to meeting people and educating people, and also giving them facts and figures that they can go
Mm.
and digest and think about, because not everyone's going to get it straight away, and
Yeah.
everyone needs to deal with it in their own time. And I know that.
Mm.
I've been doing this for long enough, so I know it's one of those subjects that needs time, and it's about
Yeah.
being patient. So I think by being patient, giving it time, staying positive, and being
Mm.
welcoming to others, and
Mm.
building allies, because again, that's extremely important, is building allies across all the communities, because that needs
Yeah.
to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it makes sense as well what you were saying about things like data, because when it's tangible, I think people can understand it a bit more. And then those lived experiences brings that authenticity to help people really actually understand.
You know, I've done talks and I've had people crying, and I didn't even mean for that. But I think, you know,
Mm.
talk and you explain things, and people hear
Mm.
struggles and barriers, that it really resonates.
Mm.
That authenticity
Yeah.
is something that I think a lot of people get from a lot of the talks that I do. And I think that's something
Mm.
that makes me that kind of that person that people do want to talk to, and they do want on the show, and they do want to hear more from, because I
Definitely.
know that challenge their experience. And also just being a trans parent as well has its own challenge
Mm.
on top of that. I'm
Yeah.
sure also having dyslexia. So,
Mm.
and being born to two deaf parents, I think there's
Yeah.
challenges in so many areas, but I'm so positive. I try my best,
Mm.
and I'm always so friendly and open. So yeah, please, if
Mm.
you've got any questions, feel free to ask.
Yeah, no, thank you. That would be brilliant, Saskia. So where's the best place for anyone to get in contact with you if they have got questions?
If anyone would like to get in touch with me, please feel free to reach out. I'm on LinkedIn, so that's Saskia Menendez. I'm also on Instagram, that's MIZSASKHIA, Miss Saskia. You can also reach out on my email address, which is msaskia@gmail.com. You can also find out more on the F list, and also the live diversity task force. Thank you.
Perfect. All right, brilliant. Yeah, we'll put all those in the show notes as well. But it's just nice when people are listening to hear it too.
Thank
All right, it's been such a pleasure to have you on, Saskia, and thank you
you.
so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, and it's been a pleasure. And I felt so comfortable and just
Oh,
relaxed. It
thank you.
felt like a conversation that was flowing, and I felt really, yeah, I really enjoyed that.